everyone, and happy Monday. I am broadcasting for the very first time from the Dr. Dawn Shop Talk Facebook page. So be patient with me because I am still learning how to click on everything and make sure everything goes great for today's show. I want to welcome you to Dr. Dawn Shop Talk. As you know, we have had the privilege of hosting the Monday Huddle each and every week for a couple of months now with our partners at Southern Inspiration. So the CEO and founder, Michelle Williamson Hill, will be joining us soon because, as I said last week, I don't want to do the show without her. She doesn't want to do the show without me. And so we are really looking forward to continuing to bring you some really great content to help you get your week started off on the right foot. So the first thing I wanted to tell you a little bit about is the fact that since we just got done with our 3-part series, if you tuned in, you know that we had a 3-part series on interviewing, what to do before, during, and after the interview. So we thought a great follow-up would be to kind of figure out what you could do now that you've got the job. So the title of today's show is, You've Got the Job, Now What? This is really something I want everyone to really think about because you work so hard to prepare before the interview. You obviously did a great job during the interview, and you had that professional courtesy to follow up like we talked about last week. So now that you've got the job, you want to really make sure that you're making a terrific first impression. So in today's show, I'm going to be talking specifically about my 3 easy steps on how to do just that. Now, that's the introduction. So I am now ready to have our wonderful co-host, Michelle Williamson Hill, who's already joined us, officially be part of the show. Hi, Michelle, and happy Monday.
Oh, hey, Dr. Dawn. Happy Monday to you. You know, it feels a little bit different being on this side.
I bet it does, Michelle. I bet it does. For those of you that don't know, she has run the broadcast studio each and every Monday since we started this a couple of months ago, right, Michelle?
Yeah, that's right. And now the shoe is on the other foot. But you're doing a great job.
I always knew I appreciated my dear friend Michelle, but you guys, if you've ever had the privilege of working with a really good friend of yours, and they're doing one job and you're doing the other, if you ever think their job is any easier than yours, you just switch jobs for a minute and you will appreciate them on a whole other level.
Oh, my goodness. That's right. Oh, my goodness. Well, I am just excited that it's on your page and folks can find it there now, and that you are, I mean, and my goodness, you're an old pro already. You've got it all down. So I'm just excited that we get to continue to do this and offer the great tips that you bring.
I agree, Michelle. I think it's a great partnership. We have so much fun doing the show. And for those of you who know Michelle as well as I do, you know she is an expert in being able to share great stories. And it's really a passion of hers, too, to make sure that she showcases local companies, small businesses, and nonprofits. And so that's near and dear to her heart, just like being a career coach and offering corporate training and professional development is really near and dear to my heart. So it's just an awesome partnership. And Michelle, I was saying earlier in the introduction that I thought a great follow-up to our 3-part series on what to do before, during, and after the interview would be to help people really make a great first impression. And that really starts in the very first week, doesn't it?
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. You know, once you get through that interview process and you get those words saying you're hired, that is really when the real work begins. And you definitely want to go in there and your actions match your talk, your walk match your talk, and you come through and, like you said, put your best foot forward. And so I'm excited that you're going to tell us how to do that and to really start off and set that first impression.
That first impression is so important. And if you don't set the tone at the very beginning in week one, it really can kind of affect things for quite a while. So, as you guys know, I love sharing easy tips, right? And I love to say that sometimes things can be as easy as one, two, three. And that's definitely the case in the first couple of weeks of the new job. So, I'd like to start by talking about step one. Step one is week one. Let's make sure we set the right tone by upping your professional game. And what I mean by that is that you really want to make sure that that very first day, in fact, you do some really special things. For example, get to work at least 30 minutes early. That for sure is going to set the right tone because it's going to show you, your colleagues, and the organization that you are respectful of your time and also the organization's time. Something else you want to do on that very first day to set that first week off on the right foot is to go ahead and introduce yourself. You know, many times we are lucky enough to have great folks in human resources and great members of our department. And many times they're kind enough to introduce you around, but they're not going to get to everybody. So you want to make sure that you continue to introduce yourself to folks that you don't know that very, very first week. You also want to make sure that in addition to that, you want to make sure that you are setting the right tone by dressing professionally. Remember, Michelle, when we shared some of our first tips on the Monday Huddle was to dress up even when you're working from home. And one of the reasons that we encourage people to at least get completely dressed at some point during the day was because it does kind of get you in that right mindset.
Right.
Sometimes when people start a new job, they get a little nervous and they end up maybe dressing up a little bit too much. You don't want to do that. That might set the wrong tone too, right, Michelle?
Right.
You want to dress for the job. Maybe your job is not one that requires a suit and tie or that kind of thing, but typically you want to dress for the job you just got, but you also want to dress for the next job. And typically that means maybe one level above where you are now. That sets a professional tone, but still makes sure that you're coming across as very approachable. Right, Michelle?
Absolutely. And it just exhibits professionalism as well, that you thought through that enough to show up to, like you said, to fit the job and for what that description is. And so I think that's absolutely one of the best tips.
Absolutely. And sometimes, you know, you'll find that people want to make sure that they are so approachable. They might make the mistake, Michelle, on the other side of things.
Right.
You probably don't want to dress too casually, but you'll get a good sense of that on the very first day when you kind of check out how your colleagues are dressing, you know, and how your supervisors are dressing and that kind of thing.
That's right.
All right, I took a look at our comments and we already have some comments coming in. Thank you, Bud, who gives us he's giving us a woohoo, Michelle.
Oh,
So,
thanks, Bud.
I know, love his support. That is just wonderful. Okay, guys, we're going to go on to my second step. Step 2 on week 2. Here's what happens in the second week. By the second week, you've already, gotten to know quite a few people, not everybody perhaps, but, you're starting to know folks. They're starting to know you. You're also getting into a little bit of a routine, right? Because you got that first week behind you. That's great too. Now what you want to start thinking about is how can you, now that you've established yourself a little bit, how can you make things easier for your organization? So let me explain a little bit about why that's so important. One of the things you want to be cognizant of is that you're not aware really yet what the organizational culture has been up to this point. And a key question you want to ask your colleagues, your supervisor, and if you're a supervisor, you want to ask your employees this very key question. And the question is, what can I do to make your life easier? And I know one of those ways is, how can we turn this job into your dream job? Many times when I meet with staff, one of the first questions I will ask is, what do you love doing? And what do you wish you had time to do more? So many times you might be walking into a situation that might be kind of already a little stressed. What if there have been some recent vacancies in that department? Maybe some retirements, right? And even though we're happy people get to retire, the bad part is now their job has fallen onto your shoulders. So one of the first things you really want to ask people is, what do you love about your job? What are the challenges? And don't go in there and try to make a million suggestions right off the bat. Instead, use this as an opportunity for some research, right, Michelle? Because
Right.
you don't want to come across as if you're someone who's just going to automatically make changes for the sake of
Right.
making those. You instead want to be seen as a true asset. And the way to do that is to figure out ways that you can make life, not just for your boss, but for your colleagues, a little easier. That's also going to help you become that team player that we'll focus on a little bit more next week.
Absolutely. And that's just adding to your value. If you can show a system that creates efficiencies or, improves productivity or any of those things that you learned about probably during part of the interview process, you're just setting yourself up for continued success to be able to offer some suggestions.
Absolutely. And in fact, a lot of the research supports, Michelle, that if people feel really good about their jobs, they're not only going to be happier at work, they're going to be more loyal to that company, they're going to be easier to work with. And in fact, that recent surveys show that job satisfaction oftentimes is tied more to how you're treated, whether by colleagues or by a supervisor. And that tends to be a stronger pull in terms of whether you think it's a dream job than even a paycheck.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
again, when you're starting a new job, I can't stress that enough. Really think about ways that you can make life easier. And if you do that, your job, right, Michelle, is going to be a lot.
Yes, for sure. Well, and you're building relationship too. You're establishing your value, you're positioning yourself to help others, and that does all good for relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's going to kind of actually lead us right into step three. Step three is to go the extra mile. See, by now, if you're in that third week, you've already kind of gotten into a habit. Oftentimes they say it takes 21 days to really establish a good habit. So you've been there 21 days now that you're in week three. And if you follow steps one and two, you're already establishing a terrific reputation at work. They see your professionalism, they see your positivity, they see that you're willing to help out and to be part of the team and to kind of carry your load. They see that you're willing to share your expertise with others and kind of help them as well. So by the time you get to step three, you might be thinking, well, all the work is done, but actually, this is the perfect time for you to really think about, what does going the extra mile look like for your organization? So, in the previous step, remember I was talking about how you're not really sure what had been going on in that job before you. So, let's say that in going the extra mile, the best strategy is to do a little research. And the way you can do that is to really start asking some questions. For example, if you know that your department has just been treading water, right, because there have been some retirements, and as a result, a lot of work had been put on the shoulders of everybody else. Well, you can start going the extra mile in figuring out, what can you now do to lessen that burden. So if you do a little research on what that would look like, that not only is really going to help you shine at work, Michelle, but it's going to help you kind of establish yourself a little bit more in the company. And it may even get to the point where people will start seeing you as that go-to person. And if you're that go-to person, that can really actually add to your job security,
For
right, Michelle?
sure. Yes, for sure.
Yes. So that's one thing you really need to think about, is what can you do to help out at the next level? And just like you may have heard this, I love this quote, and I'm just paraphrasing here. If you really love what you do, then as they say, you never have to work a day in your life, right, Michelle? Because it doesn't seem like work. So
Right.
going that extra mile can really, really help folks see that you're committed. That might mean coming in early. That might mean staying late when need be. It's a fine line sometimes to go the extra mile because you can sometimes spread yourself way too thin. So definitely don't want people to do that, but it is really something to think about.
And sometimes even asking, what can I do? Not just noticing things that need to be done. As you mentioned, the example, if short staffed due to retirements and stepping in and kind of taking on some of the load, but even just asking your boss or your coworker, another colleague, what is a project that I can assist with? Or what are some projects that the team just hasn't been able to get to yet? How can I help move that progress along? So sometimes asking questions can go very, very far as well.
Absolutely. And it's really the perfect time to do that because within those, first 2 or 3 weeks, people are going to be a little bit more comfortable working with you.
Right.
And of course, that's just going to continue. If you follow these 3 steps, there's just no way that you're not going to be able to make a contribution and for folks to get more comfortable working with you. And if it's a stressful job and they're just so happy you're there because they really need your help, then they're going to let you know rather quickly
Right.
what they need to be able to do their absolute best job.
That's exactly right. These are some wonderful tips as always. And count on that.
Well, we definitely like to make it easy and important for folks because I really believe that that's where career coaching can come in. That's where training can come in. And sometimes, people have already had some of that, but you just kind of maybe need a new perspective, especially as our jobs perhaps start to change with, coming back to work. COVID-19 is going to perhaps affect how people do their jobs and doing their jobs differently. So, that's going to be important is to not only help yourself if you are taking on a new position, these 3 steps might be able to kind of ease that transition, right, Michelle?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And I love too that these steps and all the Huddle content that we've talked about is all available on your website. I know you've recently started a blog. And so folks, if you missed something, if you didn't have your pen quite ready to write down something, quick, you can visit drdonshoptalk.com that she's got there on the screen and get that additional content. And even better, hire her as your coach if you really feel like you need to go a little bit deeper and need some additional time and training and coaching, whether that be on a professional level or even just on a personal level, right, Dr. Hamby?
Absolutely. Coaching has become so much more important, especially when you're facing change. And coaching, whether it's career coaching or life coaching, has become more valuable and more recognized because people understand that coaching is not just for athletes anymore. I mean, think about how coaching started, right? An athlete obviously is very talented. Nobody would question that, especially if they're playing something like professional sports. You already know that person's talented. So why have a coach? The coach is not playing the game, but the coach is able to bring out that person's best talent. That's what a career and life coach can do. And it's so exciting for me because I've been in the business of training and education for a couple of decades, close to I don't necessarily admit that. But what is exciting about it is that, you're able to meet with somebody one-on-one. And there's a lot of different choices on the website. I'll put the website back up there, but the coaching can be done as a 1-hour session. You pick any topic that's on our website, and if you want to talk about that in more depth, that's what we'll do. All of the coaching can be done through a virtual platform, so we don't have to worry about the issue of trying to meet face-to-face. And it's not just the coaching. What if some of the topics that we've been talking about in our Monday huddle Perhaps those topics are things that you would really like to offer training on for your business. Then you could go ahead and schedule that. Reach out to me. I could host a meeting or be part of a meeting or a training. And again, Michelle, that could be done virtually as well. And I'm also glad, Michelle, that you mentioned it's never too late to miss our broadcast. We try to do a fun lunch and learn format, but sometimes people have to skip lunch or they don't have time to tune in. So it's never too late to actually catch our broadcast, because we're going to actually have that available on our Facebook page now at the Dr. Dawn Shop Talk Facebook page. You can also catch it on YouTube. We do have a YouTube channel as well. And then usually, Michelle, right within a couple of days or a week, I'll go ahead and post the video on the website too.
That's right. Plenty of places to find it.
Exactly. And on that Monday blog, all the tips that I share, like the tips for today, I'm going to make sure that I post that as well, so people can find those, and those are free to download. So just a great resource for you.
Everything that you need. Right there in one place and in several places.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Well, Michelle, I think that pretty much covers. I checked our comments. We're getting some great support. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And so that's really all I had for today. I'd like to just thank everyone for tuning in, and also to give you a sneak peek. Michelle and I were talking about how in our previous episodes, since we had gone over what to do before, during, and after the interview, we knew that would lead to today's topic, and that was to make your best first impression. Well, we talked a lot today about what that would look like, being a team player, really giving it your all. So I thought a really great next step would be to focus on being that team player, but it's very possible that you can spread yourself way too thin. It just kind of naturally happens that way, right, Michelle?
It does sometimes.
It really can. So we want you to be a valuable asset, but we don't want you to run out of steam, especially when you're starting a new job or a new position. So next week's topic is going to be become a team player without running out of steam.
I can't wait for that one. That one's going to be a good one. It's all about balance and moderation. And so you're going to have some great tips to tell us how to do that.
That's exactly right. All right, everyone. Well, you have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. We can't wait to see you next Monday at the Dr. Dawn Facebook page, same time, 12 noon. I'm going to check our comments one more time. Oh, Alexandra Torado Hassert, she's agreeing with all of our tips. That's wonderful. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for watching.
We appreciate you, and have a wonderful Monday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.